Over 2,000 UFO sightings have been reported in just the first half of 2025, and that's probably only scratching the surface. A mysterious interstellar object called 3I Atlas is speeding through our solar system. Some scientists think it could hint at alien technology. And back in June, a woman in Massachusetts caught a strange object falling from the sky on video. These are strong signs of alien life we can no longer ignore. The National UFO Reporting Center, or NUFORC, has recorded more than 2,000 UFO sightings just in the first half of 2025. Noticeable jump from previous years. According to their data, there were 2,174 sightings in that 6-month stretch, compared to 1,492 in 2024. NUFORC is a non-profit that collects UFO reports and looks into unexplained cases, and they warned that the numbers probably only scratch the surface. These figures likely represent only a small number of actual views, said Christian Stepien, NUFORC's chief technology officer. He estimates that only about 5% of UFO sightings ever get reported. Many of the reports they received this year actually describe events from years or even decades ago because of the stigma around coming forward. The reports come from all kinds of people, from ordinary citizens to air traffic controllers, police officers. UFOs have been grabbing headlines a lot more recently, especially after David Grush testified in 2023 that the Pentagon had been running a secret UFO tracking program. Since then, other people in the military and the government have come forward backing him, saying the Department of Defense hasn't been fully honest with the public or Congress about what they know. I'm gonna guess a lot of you have heard the recent buzz about 3I Atlas, but for those not in the know, there's a strange object from outside our solar system called 3I Atlas, which has made its way into our solar system, and scientists are flipping out about it. Harvard professor Avi Loeb has even come out saying it could be alien technology because of its weird path past Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, which he said showed, quote, precision. NASA first detected it on July 1st, and it's only the third known object from another star system to visit us, after Oumuamua in 2017 and Comet Borisov in 2019. The object is moving insanely fast, more than 37 miles per second, so launching a new spacecraft to catch it is basically impossible. A study from Michigan State University calculated that a mission would have needed to launch at 15 miles per second on the day of the discovery just to reach it. Instead, Loeb has suggested redirecting a spacecraft that's already in space, like NASA's Juno probe. He thinks Juno could use its remaining fuel to intercept 3I Atlas when the object passes about 34 million miles from Jupiter in March of 2026. Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna supports this idea. In a letter to NASA, she wrote, "It is recommended that NASA conduct a study to assess how much fuel is left in Juno's engine, and I support an extension of the Juno mission at least until mid-March 2026 at a cost of about $15 million per 6 months from the current expiration date of mid-September 2025. Not everyone agrees though. Jason Wright of Penn State said Juno does not have enough fuel to visit 3I Atlas. Its main engine is also malfunctioning. Researchers are still exploring other options, like redirecting Mars Odyssey or the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Atsuhiro Yaganuma from Michigan State said it would require a lot of fuel and a lot of rapid mobilization from people here on Earth, but getting close to an interstellar object could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Back in June in Pembroke, Massachusetts, a woman named Colleen McCormick saw something while hanging out in her backyard. Around 9 p.m., she was just sitting by her hot tub when she noticed this weirdly shaped object in the sky, plummeting toward the ground. She managed to capture it on camera. It looked like it was on fire or something. She ran to the front of her house, expecting to hear a loud crash when it hit, but the blinking object quickly disappeared from view. "My heart was pounding because I just looked up," she said. Well, the FAA weighed in, but they didn't really have a whole lot to add. They said they hadn't received any reports of debris in the area and generally don't comment on third-party videos like this one. The Pembroke Police Department and the Fire Department reported no signs of wreckage or other reports in the neighborhood either. A lot of people have been talking about this one lately. This footage comes from a US Reaper drone off the coast of Yemen. It shows a glowing orb in the sky, and when a missile hits it, it just keeps going, like it bounced off. The footage dated October 30th, 2024 was shown at a House oversight hearing by Missouri Congressman Eric Burlison. He said it came from a whistleblower. When slowed down, the missile clearly makes contact with the orb, but instead of exploding it, it just continues along its path. Lou Elizondo, a former Pentagon intelligence officer who used to study unidentified aerial phenomena, said, "We've never seen a Hellfire missile hit a target and bounce off. When a Hellfire makes a hit on something solid, there's usually not much left of whatever it is it's hitting, but in the video it seems like the missile is either redirected or glances off the object." End quote. The clip doesn't show the second drone that actually launched the missile, and the military hasn't said what the mission was. There's a good chance you've seen this video before. It's often referred to as the best UFO footage ever. Pilot Jorge A. Arteaga was flying a small plane over Colombia when something strange caught his eye. At first it looked like a dark speck in the distance, just hanging in the sky, but as his plane got closer, the object started moving. He pulled out his phone and started recording while keeping the plane steady to catch the thing flying straight toward them at an incredible speed. It's not on screen long, but we do get a brief glimpse of it up close. It's silver colored and it's kind of shaped like a saucer. But just as suddenly as it appears, it shoots out of view. Ortega later said the object had been stationary at first, just floating between Medellin and Santa Fe before flying past them. As for what the hell this thing was, there's been no official statement. On May 18th, a webcam on the coast of Cozumel near Cancun caught a weird object flying past a docked cruise ship. It goes by incredibly fast. Blink and you'll miss it, but pausing on the object, it's dark and almost kind of saucer shaped, looks weird, also looks to have lights on the tail end, and it moves smoothly through the air without wobbling or slowing down. People who saw the clip weren't sure what to make of it. Some have said it could be an insect or a bird maybe, but I'm not sure if those things fit, and it doesn't look like any normal aircraft or drone, but what do you all think of this one? On February 15th, 2023, Navy Senior Chief Petty Officer Alexandra Wiggins was on the USS Jackson when he saw something strange on radar. A tic-tac shaped object coming out of the ocean. He went out the bridge wing to see it with his own eyes and ran through all the usual possibilities, but nothing fit. It was rising into the air high enough to where I'm like, alright, that's definitely A, too fast, and B, not something I've seen before, Wiggins said. Then he noticed 3 more objects moving in sync about 8 nautical miles away. He reported it to a tactical officer and checked them on the radar. On the radar video, you could see the tic-tacs moving up and down, then meeting up midair. First, a lot of people just write it off as planes, but Wiggins showed them the difference by tracking an actual aircraft right afterward. You see the wings perfectly, the tail wings, the shape of the nose. It was kind of like checkmate, he said. And even after decades in the Navy, Wiggins said he's never seen anything like this. Let's take things back a bit, all the way to the morning of August 15th, 1950. Nick Mariana, who ran the Great Falls Electrics baseball team, was checking out the empty stadium with his secretary, Virginia Ronick, when he noticed these 2 bright silvery objects flying over Great Falls, spinning as they moved. Mariana estimated they were about 50 feet wide and 150 feet apart, zooming along at 200 to 400 miles per hour. He grabbed his 16mm movie camera and filmed the UFOs for 16 seconds. And the next day, the Great Falls Tribune ran a story about what Mariana had filmed, and soon the clip was being shown around town, picked up by other newspapers. The U.S. Air Force got involved after a reporter contacted Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Captain John Binnelston interviewed Mariana, and both he and Roddick mentioned seeing 2 jet fighters fly over the stadium shortly after the UFOs appeared. Binnelston sent the film to the base to be analyzed. The Air Force concluded the objects were just reflections from 2 jets flying nearby, but Mariana said the first 35 frames, the ones showing the discs spinning, were missing. And other folks who'd seen the original film agreed, saying the missing frames clearly showed rotating metallic discs. The Air Force officials denied this though, saying only 1 damaged frame had been removed. Seems there might have been some shady stuff going on behind the scenes here, but even with the missing frames, this footage is still known as one of the earliest pieces of UFO evidence captured on camera. On March 16th, 2024, astronomer Dr. Sebastian Felix Volkmer was looking at the moon through his C11 telescope when he noticed something zipping past it. He shared the footage online, but he made it clear he's not some UFO fanatic. First, he thought it might be a meteor, but then he ruled that out. since there was no white tail, and the International Meteor Organization had no records of anything passing by at the time. Dr. Voltmore said, "I actually assume that it was at an altitude of 100 to 200 kilometers, i.e. in the transition to the so-called low Earth orbit. That's really far away. Definitely not in the sky like an ordinary plane, but not so far it was deep in space." End quote. He also said he checked carefully to make sure it wasn't a satellite. I didn't know this, but it turns out there are a lot of UFO sightings in Wales of all places. I don't know what aliens' fascination is with whales, but reports date all the way back to the 1940s. The UFO in question here was spotted in September of 2016 by a police helicopter at around 9 p.m. It was only visible on the chopper's thermal camera and seemed to be moving at a speed of 106 miles per hour over the Bristol Channel. The full video of the footage was released by a former cop named Gary Hasteline, who's been urging the UK government to come forward and reveal what they know about UFOs. What's also interesting about this one is that the object was moving against the wind. So it was being operated one way or another. It's not like it was some object caught in a wind current or something. Police also stated years after the event that it could have possibly been a drone, but they were struggling to keep up with it, so it would have had to have been a pretty fast one. There are drones that reach that 100-mile-per-hour speed, but they're pretty high-end. Your common drone clocks in at around 45 to 70 miles per hour. On April 26, 2013, a U.S. Customs and Border Protection plane recorded some really strange footage off the coast of Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. The crew was following a small glowing object with a high-tech infrared camera as it flew over Rafael Hernandez Airport and out toward the ocean. At first, the object moves incredibly fast. Then it seems to split into two identical objects. Either that or it was just two objects traveling very close together at first. And then they seem to drop straight into the ocean. They're not like a rock hitting water with a splash. They just vanish underwater without slowing down. After a bit, they pop back out of the water and continue moving before disappearing entirely. A filmmaker named Jeremy Corbell, who's known for digging into UFO stories, recently shared new footage that he says came from the US Air Force. The footage was filmed on November 23, 2020, somewhere between Afghanistan and Pakistan. It shows a huge disc-shaped object moving through the clouds. Corbell said, quote, "This is the first time in history that military filmed footage of a disc-shaped UAP, designated as such by the military, has been captured on camera and released to the public." He then went on to say the craft moved with what looked like, quote, "intelligent control." He says it's somewhere between 200 and 400 meters wide, though no one knows for sure. The strange part is that it doesn't give off any heat at all. Corbell explained, "This was captured on a thermal sensor. It should have detected heat if any traditional propulsion was present, but there's nothing." He and journalist George Knapp said they spent over 2 years confirming the footage with people inside US government UFO programs. Knapp said, "We know it's real. It was not supposed to be made public, but it should have been." When reporters asked the Pentagon about it, they said, quote, "We have nothing to offer on that." Back in 2019, the crew of the USS Omaha spotted something weird off the coast of San Diego one night. A dark round object flying over the water. The ship's infrared camera caught it, and the footage later leaked, again thanks to Jeremy Corbell. The Pentagon backed it up, confirming the video was taken by Navy personnel. In the clip, you can hear the sailors reacting while they track it on screen. One of them says it took off, it's booking it, as the sphere shoots across the radar. Then it just drops, hovers for a moment, and starts dropping straight down toward the ocean. A few seconds later, someone yells, "It splashed," as it disappears under the waves. Corbell said the video was recorded on July 15, 2019, during a stretch of nights when the Navy kept spotting strange stuff in the air, at least 14 solid objects, each a couple meters wide, moving between 74 and 254 kilometers an hour. After this one vanished underwater, they sent a sub to check it out, but nothing was recovered. Whatever it was, this is still one of the clearest, most confirmed UFO clips the Pentagon's ever admitted is real. Just what in the hell is this thing? Now, I don't have a lot of info on this one. I believe the image first showed up on Reddit about a year back. User itchypalp_88 wrote that it was sent to them by their neighbor in Vacaville, California, who'd caught it on their Ring camera at a trailer park backing up to a creek. As for what it is, hairless cat, the chupacabra, an alien, those big black eyes definitely kind of make it look like one. As weird and freaky as this thing is though, it is oddly cute in a kind of ugly way. You know what I mean. Now this next one is clearly a drone, but doesn't make the story any less creepy. So about 5 years ago in British Columbia, Canada, a couple had a pretty creepy run-in with what they thought was just a drone, except this one got way too close for comfort. Around 11:30 p.m. on Friday, September 25th, a man named Ryan Frank noticed something weird flying right outside his window. It was a drone actively watching the house. It was next to the car looking in the window and then hovered right in front of me, Ryan said. It came so close to the window at one point it cut the strings on 2 hanging hummingbird feeders. He said the drone hovered outside his house for just under 5 minutes. I threw a beer at it at some point, but I missed, he added. Eventually the drone flew off. The next morning Ryan checked his security footage and showed it to his girlfriend, Shayla Skates. Perfect Canadian name there. Anyway, she'd been asleep when it all happened, and she was pretty freaked out. I feel violated, she said. Who knows what this person was recording of me? How many times this drone has been recording my house, me, my child? Turns out this wasn't an isolated thing. When Shayla posted about it on Facebook, at least half a dozen people commented saying they'd seen similar drones snooping around homes in the area. In fact, just the year before, a woman named Dominique Embury had her own weird encounter. On December 18th of 2019, Dominic saw a small black drone hovering outside her window. Her security footage showed it carefully circling their cars, flying right up to their license plates, then sitting there watching her in the living room for almost 2 minutes before finally flying away. Ryan said the drone he saw was about 12 inches wide and 12 inches deep, with 4 propellers, battery pack, and a camera strapped to it. This footage was released by the AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, a group inside the US Department of Defense that's specifically in charge of looking into UAPs. The clip was made public during a US Senate hearing and has been part of their official investigation records. It was captured by an MQ-9 Reaper drone, which is a high-tech surveillance drone usually used by the military for tracking and reconnaissance. Clearly, we can see a small, round object flying across the frame. The AARO has confirmed they still don't know what the thing is. They've officially labeled it as a genuine UAP. They also said it's not the first time they've caught orbs like this on camera. There have been other sightings of similar objects, but so far, no one's been able to explain what they are. Ladies and gents, for the first time on the channel, I believe, we have a mysterious flying object knocking a man out cold right on his front porch. This is one of the wildest clips I've ever seen doing videos like this. So it starts off pretty normal. We have some home security footage capturing a guy walking into his house. About 10 seconds go by though, and then this happens. So did you catch that? We might have to slow this one down so you can see it. So this small glowing object flies across the lawn at crazy speed, zips into the doorway, and then the dude just falls back onto the grass, like totally out cold. The way he just flops back and ragdolls like that, it's insane. If this video is staged, then this guy must be a stuntman or something, because that was a gnarly fall. This happened a couple years ago in La Junta, Colorado, and it's still one of the weirdest pieces of home security footage on the internet. So a woman named Vivian Gomez said that her porch camera picked something up late one night. The next morning, she checked the footage and saw what you're looking at here. Nobody actually knows what it was. Dobby from Harry Potter, maybe, or an alien? Vivian posted the video on Facebook and it exploded. It racked up over 10 million views in less than a week, and soon big news stations were showing up to cover it. Vivian said, "I showed my son and we were both just saying, what the heck is that?" She didn't feel super threatened by whatever the thing was, but she did admit she fixed her screen door after, just to be on the safe side. The creature was never seen again, and Vivian says she still has no idea what she caught on camera. In her own words, the verdict is still out. Some people think aliens are out there somewhere. Others believe they're already here, living among us. And this security footage from Mexico has a lot of people wondering if that might actually be true. The video shows this weird floating thing drifting over some bushes and landing in someone's yard. Then it slowly glides off up the hill and onto the road, shifting and changing shape as it moves, growing into something that almost kind of looks like a person, maybe? Now, normally you'd think this was just a trick of the camera or some cheap editing, but here's the part that really got people talking. The dogs in the yard saw the whole thing. They absolutely freaked out, barking at it, then just standing there utterly confused. The video blew up on Twitter, or X, and a lot of people in the comments seemed convinced. Nobody's been able to explain what this thing is. Whatever it was though, it definitely shook those dogs. This one's pretty wild. The security camera in Ojai, California caught what looks like a glowing thing hovering right in front of the lens, and just a few minutes later, a glowing orb shoots up into the sky. The footage was shot using infrared, which means even if the UFO was using some kind of cloaking, the camera would have still picked it up. According to Scott C. Waring, a well-known UFO enthusiast and blogger who runs the site UFO Sightings Daily, according to him, the UFO took off into the distance right before sunrise, almost like it was trying to leave before anyone could see it in daylight. The person who captured the video said it happened sometime between 3 and 3:30 a.m. It started with a huge bright flash of light coming from a dried-out riverbed across from their house. Place with no power lines, no street lights, and no electronics nearby. After that flash, this bright bluish white orb just showed up out of nowhere and slowly started rising into the sky. What's interesting is that you can see the first light of sunrise creeping over the horizon, but the orb isn't anywhere near it. The light from the sun and the light from the orb are totally different. The person who posted the video said, "I would really like any information on any reasonable explanations that could explain the phenomena in the video." This one comes from a construction site in Cathedral City, California, back in July of 2018. So a night security guard named Douglas Benfield was on shift when he spotted something weird on one of the monitors. What he saw was a super bright object slowly rising from the construction site, hovering for a second in midair, and then suddenly blasting off at crazy speed. Douglas, who was 48 at the time, said, "I was sitting there and everything just felt weird all of a sudden. Can't really explain." He said out of the corner of his eye he noticed something strange on the monitor. "So I played it back and couldn't believe my eyes. I kept watching it over and over again," he said. Right after that, he recorded the footage straight off the security screen with his phone and texted it to his son, who simply responded with, "WTF is that?" Douglas never showed the clip to anyone else at the time because life got busy, but when he came across it again later, he realized it was just too weird not to show, saying, "I cannot explain what is going on in that video, but it's extremely strange. I've watched it so many times and it still gives me chills." Back in 2018, something strange was caught on camera, but the footage stayed hidden for years. It was finally released to the public in January of 2024. The object was seen flying over a US military base in Iraq and was tracked using military infrared radar. It moved across the base and slowly lowered itself into a nearby body of water. About 17 minutes later, it popped back up and shot off at an unbelievable speed. The Pentagon officially marked it as a UAP, meaning they don't know what it was. One of the strangest things about the object was that it kept changing color. It would go from kind of see-through to solid black. And since the video was filmed using infrared, these color changes actually show that the object's temperature was shifting really fast. It was heating up and cooling down so quickly that the radar struggled to keep up with it. Dr. Matthew Zadegas, a physics professor at the University of Albany, said it was changing temperature faster than any known object. About 3 years ago, some really creepy security camera footage started making the rounds online. We see this weird, pale creature moving around in the backyard of an apartment complex in Moorhead, Kentucky. The video was caught by a CCTV camera in the area. It was first shared by Paranormality magazine on X. In the 33-second clip, you can see this tall, skinny, human-like figure crouching low near the back of the yard. It slowly creeps forward, looking around like it's checking to see if anyone's watching, then heads toward the homeowner's car. The footage blew up online. People from all over the world started guessing what the pale figure could be and where it came from. Some thought it looked like an alien, others said it looked more like a rake. No one's figured out exactly what it was, but what do you think? L9859F is a super-Earth, which means it's bigger than our planet, but not so huge that it's a gas giant. And again, what makes this exciting is that it's in the habitable zone of a nearby red dwarf star, basically the perfect distance where liquid water might exist on the surface. I know I keep harping on water possibly existing on these planets, but water, as we know, is kind of a big deal if you're looking for life. The star it orbits is smaller and cooler than our sun, which means the planet gets less heat, but just enough to potentially support oceans or lakes, and it's even closer than TRAPPIST-1e, only about 35 light years away. So imagine being able to spot things like oxygen or methane in the air of a planet this close. Scientists are also looking for phosphine in the atmospheres of exoplanets. On Earth, phosphine is mostly made of microbes living in oxygen-free environments like deep in swamps or soil without air. It doesn't just appear naturally in big amounts otherwise, so spotting it somewhere else could be a big deal. The idea is that if astronomers detect phosphine in the atmosphere of a planet that doesn't have oxygen, it might mean something alive is producing it, even if it's nothing like us. HG 20794d is a pretty intriguing find, mostly because it's one of the closest potentially habitable planets we've spotted, and it's only about 20 light years away. That's practically next door compared to most exoplanets, so astronomers can study it in more detail than almost any other world. It also orbits a sun-like star at just the right distance to possibly have liquid water. HG 20794d is pretty calm and stable as well, and that sun-like star is pretty calm and stable too. Younger or more active stars can spit out huge flares and blasts of radiation that can just fry its surface, but this planet isn't doing that, which gives it a much better chance to hold on to air for billions of years. Scientists think the planet is at least the size of Earth, maybe a bit bigger, which also means it could have a solid surface instead of being a gas ball. Astronomers just spotted a gas in the atmosphere of a planet 124 light years away, and it's something that on Earth life only makes. That is a pretty big deal. This is probably the biggest clue we have so far that life could exist on other planets, aside from, of course, probability alone. The planet's called K2-18b. And the gas is dimethyl sulfide, or DMS. On Earth, tiny ocean organisms called phytoplankton pump this stuff out. It's basically just a byproduct of them living their little plankton lives. So when scientists found it on K2-18b, everyone was basically like, well, could there actually be life there? Before you start imagining alien oceans and alien plankton, they're being careful about this. There's always the chance this gas could show up from some weird non-living chemical reaction, but the fact that we can even detect it from 124 light years away is pretty cool. The James Webb Telescope is that sensitive, picking up tiny molecules way out in alien atmospheres, and DMS is one of the few things we know of that life produces naturally. So yeah, it doesn't prove anything 100%, but it's easily one of the wildest hints we've ever gotten that something alive could exist outside our solar system. So K2-18b is already wild because of the dimethyl sulfide, but that's not all. Scientists also found methane and carbon dioxide in its atmosphere. On Earth, both those gases, again, can come from living things, microbes, plants, humans in our case, but they can also be made by non-living things like volcanoes or chemical reactions. That's what makes this discovery so exciting but tricky at the same time. The fact that all three gases, DMS, methane, and carbon dioxide, are showing up together though, that's what really gets people excited. It's like finding three pieces of a puzzle that might fit together to hint at life. Even though we can't say for sure there is life, seeing this combination of gases in a planet's atmosphere that's in the habitable zone, meaning it could have liquid water, that's exactly the kind of thing some scientists just dream about. NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS, discovered a planet called TOI 700e. It's a world about the size of Earth, sitting in the habitable zone of its star. Again, that basically means it's at the right distance to maybe have liquid water. Not too hot, not too cold. And if there's water, there could be life. Scientists are especially excited because this exoplanet is one of the few Earth-sized planets we've found that's actually in this sweet spot. The planet is a little bigger than Earth, but it could have a similar surface, maybe even oceans. We don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but with telescopes like James Webb, we might be able to get a look at its atmosphere and soon see if it has gases that could hint at life. And TOI 700e is relatively close in space terms. Anyway, it's only about 100 light years away, which is basically in our neighborhood compared to a lot of other exoplanets we've discovered. So the idea that there's a planet that may have water, maybe life, floating around a nearby star, that's pretty exciting. Here's a crazy one. The James Webb Space Telescope just found a planet that was basically hiding in plain sight. It's called TWA 7b. It was found found inside the dusty debris disk around a young star. These debris disks are basically clouds of leftover material from forming stars. JWST's insane sensitivity finally let astronomers spot it directly, which is a huge deal, because spotting exoplanets is usually like trying to see a firefly next to a spotlight. TWA7b is especially interesting because it's around a very young star. We're talking just a few million years old. That sounds very old, but in terms of space, that's basically a baby star, and that could mean the planet is still forming, or has an unusual atmosphere. The James Webb Telescope can even study the light coming from the planet to see what it's made of, which could tell us if there's anything in its atmosphere that might give us clues about life existing there. Next up, let's talk about technosignatures. This is basically the idea of looking for signs of alien technology instead of just biological life. It'd be a bit like looking for the lights of a distant city while out sailing at night, or sniffing for weird chemicals in the air that wouldn't be there naturally. Astronomers are hunting for things like industrial pollution, radio signals, laser flashes, stuff that could mean an advanced civilization is doing civilization stuff. The cool part is that some of these signatures would be way easier to spot than, a tiny microbe floating in an atmosphere. For example, if we detected a gas in an exoplanet's atmosphere that here on Earth only comes from factories or cities, that would be a massive clue that intelligent life could be living there. Scientists are even brainstorming ways to spot things like megastructures, huge artificial objects around a star. How would they detect something like that from so far away? Well, by the way the light dims or flickers. Say there was a massive solar panel array around a star. Sounds crazy, but the trick is all about how starlight behaves when these objects are in the way. Normally, when a planet passes in front of its star, it blocks a tiny bit of light, which is how we find exoplanets in the first place. The star dims a little at regular intervals. Now imagine a super huge structure would block more light or block it in weird, irregular patterns. The telescope can detect these strange dips in brightness, flickers, and that's basically a clue that something artificial could be orbiting the star. The whole field is kinda new. There's a lot of debate about what even counts as a solid technosignature, but it's a pretty interesting way to think about finding aliens. Instead of just looking for life like us, we're looking for signs what they've built. And another twist on searching for alien life, more on looking for pollution. Weird as it may sound, scientists are considering that industrial chemicals in a planet's atmosphere could be a clue that life exists there. Take chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, for example. Humans make these in factories, and they stick around in the atmosphere for a long time. If we saw CFCs on another planet, that could be a dead giveaway that some civilization was living there. Detecting stuff like this is tricky though. The telescope has to be insanely sensitive, and the planet has to be at the right distance and angle so the atmosphere can be analyzed. Still, it's exactly the kind of creative thinking that could tell us we're not alone in the galaxy. If even one of these pollutants is spotted on a distant planet, it would be a game changer. TRAPPIST-1e is about the same size as Earth and sits 40 light years away, which in space terms is practically next door. What's really cool is that it's in the habitable zone of its star. That alone makes it interesting, but the James Webb Space Telescope has taken things to another level. Scientists have been studying its atmosphere, and they've found hints of gases like nitrogen, which is super important for life on Earth, plus some signs that water could exist. We don't know for sure if TRAPPIST-1e has oceans or rivers, but just spotting an atmosphere with the right mix of gases is a huge deal. It means this planet could, in theory, support life like we know it. And TRAPPIST-1e orbits a star much dimmer than the Sun, so its year is super short, only about 6 Earth days, which makes the climate really different from ours, but even with that, the idea that a planet could have water and a breathable atmosphere, all while being just 40 light years away, that's exactly why it's considered one of the most promising spots to hunt for alien life.
Number 5. Farthest radio signal from a galaxy. Astronomers using a radio telescope in India have captured the most distant ever radio signal from a galaxy. This signal came from a galaxy called SDSS J0826 plus 5630 that exists 8.8 billion light years away. That essentially means that it exists closer to the Big Bang than any other galaxy previously detected using radio astronomy. A galaxy emits different kinds of radio signals said are now Chakraborty, a postdoctoral researcher who studies cosmology at the Department of Physics at McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Until now, it's only been possible to capture this particular signal from a galaxy nearby, limiting our knowledge to those galaxies closer to Earth. The researchers from both Montreal and India used the giant meter wave radio telescope in Pune, India to capture the signal at a specific wavelength called the 21 centimeter line. The signal from the galaxy was emitted when the universe was only 4.9 billion years old, but because the universe is expanding, it took 8.8 billion years to reach the telescope. Wow. This breakthrough proves that it's possible to observe faraway galaxies using low-frequency radio telescopes. This will help us understand the composition of galaxies at a much greater distance from Earth, said Arnab. Number 4. Radio signal heartbeat. Astronomers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology have picked up repetitive radio signals from a galaxy billions of light years from Earth. Scientists have not been able to pinpoint the exact location of the radio waves yet, but the signals have been occurring steadily and last up to 3 seconds. Most fast radio bursts, or the FRBs, only last a few milliseconds. Within this window, the team detected bursts of radio waves that repeated every 0.2 seconds in a clear periodic pattern, similar to a beating heart, MIT said in a statement. On December 21, 2019, researcher at the Dominion Radio Astrophysical Observatory in British Columbia, Canada, picked up signal of a potential FRB, according to the MIT statement. Not only was it very long, lasting about 3 seconds, but there were periodic peaks that were remarkably precise, emitting every fraction of a second, boom boom boom, like a heartbeat, said Danielle Michelli, a postdoctoral researcher in the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Calvi Institute for Astrophysics and Space Research. This is the first time the signal itself is periodic. Data on the bursts, including their frequency and how they change based on where the source is located in proximity to Earth, could help researchers determine at what speed the universe is expanding. Number 3. Bright, quick blasts of radio waves. Repeating bursts of energy seem to be coming from an ancient group of stars called a globular cluster, which is among the last places astronomers expected to find them. Often originating billions of light years away, the extremely bright, extremely brief bursts of radio waves, known as the fast radio bursts, have defied explanation since they were first spotted in 2007. Based on observations to date, scientists surmise that the bursts are powered by young, short-lived cosmic objects. But a fast radio burst discovered has now been traced to a globular cluster about 11.7 million light years away near the neighboring spiral galaxy M81. To put it in perspective, finding this burst among a cluster of aging stars is kind of like finding a smartphone embedded in the Stonehenge. The observation doesn't make sense. Brian Gainsler, an astronomer from the University of Toronto, said this is definitely not a place where fast radio bursts are expected to live. Scientists are struggling to explain the cosmic anchurism. They're also moving toward the conclusion that maybe, as with many other celestial phenomena, there are multiple ways to cook up a fast radio burst. Number 2. Bursts of energy. While mapping radio waves across the universe, astronomers found a celestial object releasing giant bursts of energy, unlike anything they have ever seen before. The spinning space object, spotted in March 2018, beamed out radiation 3 times per hour. In those moments, it became the brightest source of radio waves viewable from Earth, acting like a celestial lighthouse. A study on the discovery was published in the journal Nature. Lead study author Natasha Hurley-Walker, an astrophysicist at the Curtin University node of the International Center for Radio Astronomy Research, said this object was appearing and disappearing over a few hours during her observations. That was completely unexpected. It was kinda spooky for an astronomer because there's nothing known in the sky that does that, and it's really quite close to us, about 4,000 light years away. It's in our galactic backyard. Curtin University doctoral student Tyrone O'Doherty made the unusual discovery while using the Murchison-Wilford Array, aka the MWA telescope in the outback of Western Australia. Tyrone said, "It's exciting that the source I identified last year has turned out to be such a particular object. The MWA's wide field of view and extreme sensitivity are perfect for surveying the entire sky and detecting the unexpected." And coming in at number 1, the WOW signal. In 1997, astronomer Jerry Amen was researching at the Ohio State University when an incredible and unexplainable radio signal was detected detected using the school's Big Ear telescope. In those days, information was run through what was called an IBM 1130 mainframe computer before being printed on paper and then studied by hand. Upon reviewing his findings, Jerry came across something he had never seen before. There, in a vertical column, was the sequence 6EQUJ5. Jerry was amazed and immediately circled the sequence and wrote "wow" right beside it, hence the name. The signal they picked up had come from nearly 220 million light years away, and there was no explanation as to how or why a radio signal could be detected from that distance. It immediately became a sensation in both the science community and the rest of the world, and was used to support the search for alien life in the universe. Jerry himself says he's convinced that it certainly has the potential to be the first signal from extraterrestrial intelligence. Number 10. Pisces and Aries radio signal. A radio signal was received 3 times from the same region of space in February 2003. Astronomers with the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence (SETI) project used a massive telescope in Puerto Rico to re-examine 200 sections of the sky which had all previously yielded unexplained radio signals. These signals had all disappeared except for one, which had become stronger. The signal's widely thought to be the best candidate yet for alien contact and comes from a spot between the constellations Pisces and Aries where there are no obvious stars or planets. Curiously, the signal is at one of the frequencies that hydrogen, the most common element, absorbs and emits energy. Some astronomers believe that this is a very likely frequency at which aliens wishing to be noticed would transmit. Nevertheless, there's still a good chance the signal is from a never seen before natural phenomenon, but I'd like to think that it's aliens. Number 9. Mysterious beam of energy. In December 2020, researchers announced that they had captured a very mysterious beam of energy in the radio part of the electromagnetic spectrum at 980 MHz coming from the closest star to our own. Proxima Centauri, which is just 4.2 light years away, hosts one gas giant and one rocky world 17% larger than Earth that happens to be in its star's habitable zone, meaning liquid water could exist there. The unexplained signal reportedly shifted slightly while it was being observed in a way that resembled the shift caused by the movement of a planet. Researchers are excited but cautious, explaining that they will need to figure out if more mundane sources, such as a comet, hydrogen cloud, or even human technology, could be mimicking an alien signal, and that it will likely take time before they know one way or another if aliens are contacting us. Number 8. Milky Way signal. On April 28, 2020, 2 ground-based radio telescopes detected an intense pulse of radio waves within the Milky Way. It was the first time an FRB had ever been detected within our galaxy, and despite only lasting a millisecond, it was almost impossible to miss. Located just 300,000 light years away from Earth, the FRB was picked up by the Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment, CHIME, and the Survey for Transient Astronomical Radio Emission 2, STARE-2. CHIME wasn't even looking in the right direction, and we still saw it loud and clear in our peripheral vision, said Kyoshu Masu, assistant professor of physics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. STARE-2 also saw it, and it's only a set of a few radio antennae literally made out of cake pans. April 2020's discovery was also notable for being the most energetic radio blast that astronomers have recorded in the Milky Way. But what made it most exciting is that scientists are now closer to determining the origin of FRBs. They've been billions of light years away, making them a lot harder to study, but now there's one close by. Number 7. Mysterious signals from a distant galaxy. The CHIME Observatory found 13 FRBs, and among it was a very unusual repeating signal coming from the same source about 1.5 billion light years away. Such an event has only been reported once before by a different telescope. Knowing that there is another suggests that there could be more life out there, said Ingrid Stairs, an astrophysicist from the University of British Columbia. And with more repeaters and more sources available to study, we may be able to understand these cosmic puzzles, where they're from, and what causes them. The telescope detected 13 of the radio bursts almost immediately, including the repeater. The research has now been published in the journal Nature. We have discovered a second repeater, and its properties are very similar to the first repeater. This tells us more about the properties of the repeater as a population, said Sir Harsh Tendulkar of McGill University, Canada. Number 6. Star closest to the sun radio signal. An as yet unexplained radio signal appears to be coming from the direction of the star closest to the sun, a small red star roughly 4.2 light years away called Proxima Centauri. Adding to the excitement, at least 2 planets orbit this star, one of which might be a temperate and rocky like Earth. Breakthrough Listen, a decade-long search for alien broadcasts from the nearest million stars, was using Australia's Parkes Observatory to study Proxima Centauri when the team detected the signal, which they dubbed BLC-1. The radio waves were picked up in observations made between April and May 2019. While processing those observations in the summer, Shane Smith, an undergraduate from Hillside College in Michigan working with Breakthrough, spotted BLC-1 apparently radiating from the star. Although the signal is faint, BLC-1 passed all the tests the Breakthrough team uses to filter out millions of signals generated by humans. It was narrow in bandwidth, appeared to drift in frequency, and disappeared when the telescope shifted its gaze from Proxima to a different object. Over the following days, 4 similar signals appeared, although some have been ruled out as radio interference. It's pretty expected that every now and then you'll see something weird, but this is interesting because it's something that's weird and that we have to think about the next steps, says Sophia Skye, a graduate student at Pennsylvania State University and the Breakthrough team member leading the signal analysis.
In 2004, fishermen near Socotra Island in Yemen reported a glowing metallic object rising out of the sea. They described it as looking like living metal, smooth and seamless with no seams or rivets. As it ascended, the water beneath it boiled violently, killing fish that later washed ashore. The fishermen said the object hovered silently before shooting into the sky at impossible speed. Some of the men became sick afterward, suffering from burns and dizziness. Local authorities were baffled, and the story was only lightly covered in Arabic language newspapers before vanishing. In August 1990, 2 hikers near Calvine, Scotland, snapped photos of a massive diamond-shaped UFO hovering in the sky, with a military jet flying nearby. They handed the negatives to a Scottish newspaper, which then passed them on to the Ministry of Defence, and then the photos vanished. For decades, the case became legend in UFO circles. The photos were rumored to be the clearest UFO images ever taken, and finally, in 2022, one of the original prints resurfaced. It showed exactly what witnesses described: a huge metallic diamond craft hanging in the sky with a jet circling below. The UK government had classified the photos for over 30 years, fueling suspicion. Why hide them if they were just a misidentified aircraft? On September 20th, 1977, residents of Petrozavodsk, a city in the Soviet Union, woke up to a terrifying sight. A massive, glowing object shaped like a jellyfish hovered over the city, shooting beams of light down onto buildings and streets. Witnesses said the beams looked like searchlights piercing the ground. For over 15 minutes, thousands of people across the region reported seeing the object. Some said their electronics malfunctioned, while others described a rain of glowing particles falling from the sky. The Soviet Academy of Sciences was ordered to investigate. Scientists admitted they could not explain it. This phenomenon was so widely reported, it even made international headlines, putting pressure on the USSR to start taking UFO reports seriously. Unlike other sightings, this one was witnessed by an entire city, making it nearly impossible to just dismiss. On a summer morning in 1967, 2 children in a French village were herding cattle when they saw 4 small, black-suited figures near a glowing sphere. At first, the children thought they were people, but then they saw the beings float into the air and enter the craft without moving their legs. The object emitted a loud, whooshing sound and shot into the sky, leaving behind scorched marks on the ground. Investigators interviewed the children separately, and their stories matched. Scientists later confirmed the burn marks in the grass couldn't be explained by natural causes. Unlike some sightings where the witness might be unreliable, these kids were consistent and detailed in their descriptions, and this case remains one of France's most well-documented close encounters. In 1988, authorities near Sao Paulo discovered the body of a man, but the corpse was not normal. The man had strange surgical incisions all over his body, his lips, tongue, and eyes were removed with precision, organs had been extracted without damaging surrounding tissue, and there was no blood at the scene. Forensic experts said the injuries did not resemble animal attacks or normal situations, even though that's not normal at all. UFO researchers argued it looked like a case of extraterrestrial experimentation. While skeptics pointed to possible black market organ harvesting, the surgical precision baffled investigators. Brazil's authorities never released a final conclusion, leaving this case as one of the darkest mysteries in UFO history, but also just unsolved mysteries in general. On a cold January afternoon, two Finnish skiers were gliding across the snow when they saw a strange glowing object descend silently from the sky. It stopped about 15 feet above the ground, hovering directly over them. A beam of light shot out from the craft, paralyzing one of them. He collapsed into the snow, unable to move. The other guy dragged him away as the object silently lifted back into the sky. For weeks afterward, the skier suffered from dizziness, nosebleeds, and strange skin problems. Investigators later found ground traces where the object had hovered, including melted snow and radiation anomalies. This case stands out because of the lasting health effects. It wasn't just a sighting, it was a close encounter that left behind physical injuries, the kind scientists couldn't easily explain. In January 1966, a sugarcane farmer named George Pedley was driving his tractor near a swamp in Tully, Queensland, when he heard a loud hissing sound. Moments later, he saw something rise straight out of the swamp, a gray, saucer-shaped object about 25 feet across. It hovered for a few seconds before shooting straight up into the sky at incredible speed. When George rushed over, he found the reeds in the swamp completely flattened in a perfect circular shape, about 30 feet in diameter. The plants weren't broken. Instead, they were woven together as if something had pressed down on them with precision. Investigators and journalists swarmed the site, calling it the first true UFO nest. Unlike crop circles that often turn out to be hoaxes, this one had physical evidence tied to a witnessed craft. Biologists studied the plants and found no signs of human tampering, and the Tully incident became one of the most famous UFO landing cases in Australia, and it forced scientists to take the idea of UFOs interacting with the ground much more seriously. Oh yeah, speaking of which, did you guys see new UFO video released by the government? I guess I should have put that on this list. Oops. But like, they just released a new UFO just dropped. But like, for real, it's crazy. And then they're like tracking it with like drones or whatever, and then they shoot it with a missile. It like kind of explodes a little bit, but like it keeps going, first of all, and then also the pieces that break off follow. They follow. They keep going too. I'm just saying that that's an alien. I don't know. If you haven't seen it, you should really see it. It's crazy. December 1978. A routine cargo flight over New Zealand turned into one of the most credible UFO encounters ever caught on film. Pilots, crew, and even journalists on board saw strange lights following their plane. These objects weren't just lights in the sky, they were tracked on both the aircraft's radar and ground radar at the same time. The crew described the lights as massive, sometimes merging into one large object, then splitting apart again. At one point, the object seemed to circle the plane, coming dangerously close before darting away. What made this case historic is that there's actual video footage. The lights were filmed from inside the plane, making it one of the rare UFO cases with visual, radar, and eyewitness confirmation all together. New Zealand's government opened an investigation, but eventually gave no real explanation. To this day, the Kaikoura lights remain one of the strongest cases for UFOs being real objects and not just tricks of the eye. Imagine working as a night guard and seeing a glowing disc hovering silently over the sea. That is exactly what happened to a security guard in Turkey. Between 2007 and 2009, he filmed multiple videos of the same object over the Sea of Marmara. At first, people assumed the footage was fake, but experts from Turkey's Scientific and Technology Technology Board analyzed the videos and confirmed that they were not tampered with. What makes the case chilling is that in some frames you can actually see figures inside the craft, humanoid shapes with large heads standing near windows. These videos have been debated for years, with skeptics trying to call them camera tricks, but no one has conclusively debunked them. For many, it's the closest thing to seeing inside a UFO. The Turkish government never released an official explanation, which only deepened the mystery. September 1989. Children playing in a park in the Russian city of Voronezh suddenly froze in shock. A giant red orb descended from the sky, and from it emerged a huge metallic craft. Witnesses, including dozens of kids, said 3 tall beings around 9 feet high with elongated heads stepped out along with a strange robot-like figure. According to the children, one of the beings even pointed a ray gun that caused a boy to vanish temporarily. He reappeared moments later, no worries, but he was crying and, of course, absolutely terrified. Local police investigated, and even Soviet news agencies reported the story. What made this case extraordinary is that Soviet scientists admitted they found physical evidence in the park, depressions in the ground, unusual radiation readings, and strange rocks that didn't match the local geology. At the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union wasn't exactly known for encouraging wild alien stories, yet they officially acknowledged something very unusual happened. For many in Russia, this became proof that the UFO mystery wasn't just an American obsession.
The 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident, often referred to as the Washington Flap, is one of the craziest UFO reports in history. Over 2 weekends in July of that year, people in the Capitol began reporting a series of strange sightings in the sky. On the night of July 19th, radar operators at Washington National Airport picked up a cluster of unknown objects flying at incredible speeds. Ground witnesses described seeing bright lights darting around erratically. The following night, the sightings continued, and the U.S. Air Force sent up fighter jets to chase the mysterious objects. Pilots in the jets reported seeing glowing lights that seemed to defy the laws of physics, making sudden accelerations and sharp turns that no conventional aircraft could replicate. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Richard French was an investigator for Project Blue Book in the 50s. In 2013, during a citizen hearing on disclosure, he told a pretty wild story. While working for Project Blue Book, his job had often just involved debunking UFO sightings, but there was one incident that he had no explanation for. French recounted an incident had happened while he was investigating off the coast of St. John's, Newfoundland. Reports had come in about 2 mysterious aircraft that supposedly crashed in the water. French followed a group of around 100 onlookers gathered on a nearby wharf. What he saw next was something he'd never be able to forget. He described encountering 2 to 3 foot tall beings that were thin and gray, seemingly working on their damaged crafts in the water. French and the onlookers watched as these strange beings repaired their vessels right before his eyes. Then the craft lifted out of the water and shot off into the sky. He never included this sighting in his official reports at the time, probably fearing he'd be laughed out of his job. The Indian Ocean has a long history of mysterious sightings, with reports of strange underwater objects dating back as far as 1873. A number of sailors have described encounters with these massive, mile-wide discs lurking beneath the surface of the water, sometimes accompanied by eerie lights. One of the earliest documented sightings occurred on March 23, 1873, when the ship Adelheid was navigating the South China Sea. Crew members claimed to see this huge glowing circular object floating just below the water. And then, May 15, 1879, the crew of the HMS Vulture spotted 2 enormous Ferris wheel type objects spinning in opposite directions. Each spoke about 25 feet wide and spaced about 100 feet apart. On April 14, 1901, sailors aboard the SS Kilwa reported beams of light shining from an underwater disc-like object in the Persian Gulf. Then in 1943, a sailor named Matthew Mangle noticed a massive glowing disc keeping pace with his ship. Next on the list, we have the Rendlesham Forest incident. This one is very well documented. It took place in December of 1980 near the Rendlesham Forest in Suffolk, England. Late at night on December 26th of 1980, military personnel witnessed strange lights descending into the forest. At first they figured it was just a downed aircraft, a known one. What they found definitely seemed to be an aircraft, just not one they'd ever seen before. They came across what seemed to be a metallic object on the forest floor and would see strange lights in the sky. Some reported that the object they saw was triangular and emitted strange beams of light. One of the airmen even claimed to have touched the object. There are official documents that have been released about this story with full reports by the military personnel at the site, and what they described was pretty strange. Now, did they actually encounter an alien spacecraft? It's debatable, but what is clear is that they saw something out of the ordinary. And finally, we have one of the most mysterious and destructive crash landings of all time, the Tunguska event. On June 30th, 1908, a massive blast hit this remote area of Russia. The event is believed to have been caused by the airburst of a large object of some kind, most likely a comet or asteroid, entering Earth's atmosphere and exploding in mid-air. The explosion released an enormous amount of energy and flattened about 80 million trees in the area. Now, luckily this happened in a very remote area, so only trees were affected, but that also means there were very few witnesses. A handful of people did report seeing a bright bluish light in the sky though, accompanied by a series of thunderous noises. And there's always been this question as to whether this was caused by a space rock or something else. Apparently there was also mutated plant life after this impact, and Joseph Stalin is rumored to have even conducted secret experiments in the area, but that's more of an urban legend. At the time of this recording, NASA has just launched a craft the other day set to head to Jupiter's moon to discover if life exists there. On October 14th, NASA launched the Europa Clipper spacecraft on a mission to explore Jupiter's moon, Europa, which scientists believe might have conditions suitable for life. The spacecraft lifted off from Kennedy Space Center in Florida on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. This mission aims to investigate Europa's subsurface ocean, hidden beneath an ice shell that could be up to 25 kilometers thick. Europa is about a quarter of the size of Earth, but it's believed to contain twice as much water as all of Earth's oceans combined. This makes it one of the most promising locations for finding potential life out in space, at least that we know of. The Europa Clipper is the largest spacecraft ever built for a planetary mission. It's about 100 feet long, equipped with 9 scientific instruments designed to measure the internal ocean and analyze the composition of the moon's surface. The spacecraft will conduct 49 close flybys of Europa starting in 2031, getting as close as 15.5 miles to the surface. So unfortunately, we do have quite a while to wait before we hear anything, but the fact that NASA is actively seeking out life on a distant moon is pretty cool. Fingers crossed they find something. Just last year, NASA released a highly anticipated 36-page report on UFOs, or UAPs, and there were some interesting takeaways. They looked into hundreds of sightings but concluded that they didn't find any solid evidence that aliens were behind any of them. Still, they didn't completely rule out the possibility either. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson made it clear that the agency is stepping up its game in researching these mysterious encounters. He said they'll be using better tech and artificial intelligence to dig deeper into them. The report is pretty technical, but one key takeaway is that it stated there is no reason to conclude extraterrestrial sources are responsible for these sightings. But the report also didn't deny the possibility of, quote, potential unknown alien technology operating in Earth's atmosphere. So that's pretty cool. Nicola Fox, who's part of NASA's Science Mission Directorate, said UAPs are still one of our planet's biggest mysteries. The challenge? A lot of the data they have just isn't good enough to draw any solid conclusions about what these sightings really are. To tackle this, NASA brought in a new director of UAP research, but they're keeping their identity a secret. This person will build a database to track and analyze future sightings, and using AI and machine learning. It's a smart move, especially since Dr. Daniel Evans mentioned that some members of the UAP panel had faced, quote, actual threats, which is unsettling. So keeping the new director's identity hidden is really about protecting their safety. The Falcon Lake incident began on May 20th, 1967 in Falcon Lake, Manitoba, Canada. This event has often been called Canada's best documented UFO case, and for good reason. It all started with Stephen McCallick, an industrial mechanic and amateur geologist. He was exploring the area in search of precious metals when he suddenly heard a commotion from a flock of geese, and he looked up to see two strange objects hovering about 150 feet away, which he described as cigarette-shaped things with humps in the middle, glowing with a reddish hue. One of the crafts then landed on a nearby rocky platform, transforming into a shiny disc that looked like, quote, hot stainless steel. McCallick sketched the craft for about a half an hour before deciding that he wanted to get a closer look. As he approached, he noticed it was completely smooth, but the craft had an open door where he could hear muffled voices. Then he reached out and touched the craft, which was so hot it melted the fingertips of his gloves. As he turned to leave, understandably, a panel then opened up, releasing a blast of heated gas that knocked him back, setting his clothes on fire. McCallick barely managed to escape, feeling nauseous and disoriented. He was so sick he was unable to eat solid food in the days following the incident, and was treated for burns that doctors said resembled radiation injuries. His story caught the attention of the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Air Force, and even US authorities. And when they reached the site that McCallick said he spotted the craft, authorities found a 15-foot ring of burnt vegetation, and there were highly radioactive elements found in soil samples and in the clothing McCallick had been wearing on the day of the encounter, which he had to rip off because they were on fire. And there was also superheated metal that had melted into the cracks of rocks, also highly radioactive. Till this day, the case has not been explained. This incident is referred to as South Africa's Roswell, the Kalahari crash. Kind of tells you how significant this one was. So the story goes that this whole incident was covered up. Some of the details of this one are a bit vague, and some chalk this up to being a hoax, but there were supposed leaked documents describing the following events. So this was an unusual event that took place over the Indian Ocean on May 7th, 1989. According to reports, a fast-moving object, believed to be a UFO, was spotted by naval personnel. In response, fighter jets were sent to intercept and target it. The UFO was successfully hit and crashed in the Kalahari Desert, leaving a noticeable skid mark. Shortly after the crash, a US recovery team was swiftly deployed to gather evidence from the site and transport it to Patterson Air Force Base. And not only were parts of the aircraft retrieved, but the bodies of two alien beings as well. The Tic Tac UFO incident is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence in the world of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. On November 14th of 2004, retired Navy Commander David Fravor, a pilot with the USS Nimitz, had an encounter during a training exercise off the coast of Southern California. Fravor was flying with Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich when they were directed to investigate an unusual radar signal detected by the USS Princeton, another ship in their strike group. The radar operators had spotted, quote, multiple anomalous aerial vehicles that descended from 80,000 feet to sea level in less than a second. Fravor and Dietrich diverted to get a closer look, and as they approached, Fravor described seeing a small white object that looked almost like a Tic Tac, hovering above the ocean waves. He recalled in a 2021 interview that the object seemed to respond to their movements, as if it was aware that they were there. The Tic Tac was about the size of Fravor's jet, but had no visible markings, no wings or exhaust plumes. He attempted to cut it off, but the object accelerated away so quickly that it vanished from sight, only to be detected 60 miles away in less than a minute. Fravor stated, "I think what we experienced was well beyond the material science and the capabilities that we had at the time, that we have currently, or that we're going to have in the next 10 to 20 years. This incident came out in a report revealing over 500 sightings since 2004, some of which, including this one, are still unexplained. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna opened up about a weird UFO encounter from her time in the Air Force during her appearance on Joe Rogan. She explained that while she was stationed at the Portland Air National Guard Base as an airfield management specialist, there was a strange, quote, airspace incursion that caught her attention. There had been an airspace incursion that had taken place when I was still at the Guard, and I remember talking to some of the pilots about it, and I was like, what was that? She said. Even though Luna talked to the pilots pilots, none of them really wanted to go into detail about what they saw. Still, one F-scene pilot did hint that it was unusual. From what I gathered, she said, he didn't want to get taken off flight status and was like, I really can't discuss it, adding that the pilot admitted the object essentially outperformed them and couldn't really be identified. Luna said the event made her suspect it was an unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAP. She also talked about the stigma around reporting things like this in the military, where admitting to seeing something weird could hurt your career or security clearance. She continued saying, quote, "What I can tell you is, when you have thousands upon thousands of people from around the planet throughout time that have reported something, to say those people are crazy, that's a disinformation campaign to get people to shut up about it." Now, she leads a congressional task force investigating UAPs. Luna's pushing for more transparency. "I'd like to see the federal government roll out some of the stuff we've been given access to, because I think that information belongs in the hands of the American people," she said. Astronomers have been hunting for signs of life beyond Earth, and K2-18b is a planet about 124 light-years away that's been a big focus. In 2023 and again in April of 2025, researchers using the James Webb Space Telescope thought they spotted dimethyl sulfide, or DMS, in its atmosphere. And that's pretty cool, because it's a gas produced on Earth only by marine life. So, the fact that it's showing up on a distant planet, that could be a sign of something. The April 2025 paper led by Niku Madasudan at Cambridge reported a 3 sigma confidence in the detection, meaning there was just a 0.3% chance that the signal was random. Madasudan called the moment profound, saying, quote, "However you put it, we are seeing new chemical processes on a planet that could be habitable." But some critics pointed out the analysis didn't fully account for other molecules or instrumental noise, and NASA didn't even release a press statement, saying that they'd need, quote, "follow-up studies and multiple converging lines of evidence to confirm true biosignatures and rule out false positives." A new NASA study published July 16th played it safe by looking at 4 fresh James Webb Telescope observations and using a method that lets different teams analyze the data separately and then update their conclusions as they go. The result shows that K2-18b has a lot of water in its atmosphere, along with methane and carbon dioxide, but they don't have enough evidence to say whether or not there could be life there yet. A man in the UK says he captured a UFO moving at hypersonic speeds while playing fetch with his dog. Andrew Clifton was out with his Labrador Dash in the Malvern Hills when he filmed himself throwing a frisbee. He didn't notice anything unusual at the time. It was moving so fast there was no way I could pick it up with the naked eye, he said. It wasn't until later, when he reviewed the footage at home, that he spotted whatever this thing is darting across the sky. He said, quote, "When I got home from dinner with friends later that day, I was reviewing the videos from the day and noticed something small. That's when I edited the video into slow motion and saw the object in full force for the first time." After sharing the video with his friends, they told him to post it in a UFO sightings Facebook group. The clip racked up millions of views online, especially when he shared it on X. Andrew admits he's not a hardcore believer, but thinks it's worth keeping an open mind. "Personally, I think it's more likely to be some sort of military equipment that we don't know about. But it's true that whenever I watch it, I can't come up with a full answer as to what it is," he said. Now, the Malvern Hills have some big military bases nearby, so he could be onto something about the object being military related, but what do you all think? There was another pretty interesting UAP sighting recently in Massachusetts. Just the other day, on August 12th, the father and son in Taunton were stargazing when they spotted a strange white light in the sky around 10:30 p.m. They weren't alone. Similar sightings were reported in nearby towns like Avon, North Attleboro, and Sudbury. The National UFO Reporting Center received 4 videos from these areas, all showing the same mysterious light. Bassett Siddiqui, the father in Taunton, was using a telescope when he noticed the light. He said, "I look up and I see this orb with a cloud around it. So I kind of took out my phone and started recording it right away. It was kind of dropping down, and then from there, it kind of took a right and shot straight down." End quote. Now, we've talked a lot about recent updates on possible alien life, which makes this article from 2015 very interesting. Because at the time, NASA chief scientist Ellen Stoffen was pretty confident that we were on the verge of finding alien life, and was predicting that we'd have definitive evidence in 2025. She added, "We know where to look, we know how to look. We have the technology and we're on a path to implementing it. And so I think we're definitely on the road, end quote. And there are plenty of places to check. Europa and Ganymede, moons of Jupiter and Saturn's Enceladus all have oceans under ice. NASA's Curiosity rover has found organic molecules and nitrogen on Mars, which are the building blocks for life. Almost every star we look at has planets, and a lot of them could support life. American astrophysicist Paul Hertz summed it up, saying, "The Milky Way is basically a, quote, soggy place, with water and clouds between stars, around forming planets, and even in comets breaking apart. To actually find life, Alan Stoffen says humans will probably need to go, saying, I'm a field geologist. I go out and break open rocks and look for fossils. It's eventually going to take humans on the surface of Mars. Field geologists, astrobiologists, chemists, actually out there looking for that good evidence of life that we can bring back to Earth."